listening to Xposed Living, Be Ageless, the podcast where we drop the masks, flip the script, and talk real life, real love, and real leadership unfiltered. I'm Stacey Vanthuyne, coach, speaker, entrepreneur, and founder of the Xposed Living movement that's redefining what it means to live, lead, and grow at any age. We talk identity, reinvention, belief, and freedom from the bedroom to the boardroom. Yes, we go there. This is not about staying young. This is about waking up. So if you're done with the shoulds and craving more fun, more freedom, more truth, more you, then grab your favorite drink, your bestie, maybe your journal. It's time. Let's get exposed. My first episode solo on the Xposed podcast. Maybe you can find some bloopers with these things, but I'm just going to record and share from my heart who I am, why Xposed Living, why now, and what you can expect. And so it begins. Welcome to Xposed Living, Be Ageless, a community that supports better living and the podcast for high-performing Gen Xers who are done playing it safe. I'm Stacey Vanthuyne, your host, lifestyle coach, speaker, mom, friend, daughter, sister, athlete, and reinvention rebel. That's a lot of names, that's a lot of masks, and that's a lot of labels that I know that I don't only wear, but many of you who are listening to do as well. Which one's the real you? This is where Xposed Living came from for me, is really uncovering my own truth. You would think that as we age, we would learn more about ourselves. But sometimes I think, at least in my experience, I almost forgot who I was, what I wanted. When someone first asked me what I did want at the age of 45, I remember saying, it was to my mentor, I said, I don't know. And then I went on to tell a story about how I wanted my children, my two girls, to be successful in life. And I remember him sharing and saying back to me, that's a great dream for your kids, but what about you? And truthfully, it kind of stopped me in my tracks. I want to share more about that story and how I went from there to having clarity of who I am and what I want, and recognizing it is a continuous evolution. It is an uncovering. This is how Xposed got its name, how we became a movement, a community, for this is more than just a podcast. It's a revolution Midlife didn't even know it needed. A bold space where we break the rules, where we uncover the masks and say the things that we were taught to bury. You know, it was like I would pride myself on being strong, that I would just continue to move on and never really take stock of where I was moving from or what I was moving to. Xposed Living isn't about fixing what's broken. It's about reinvention and remembering who we are. It's reclaiming the pieces that maybe you, like me, have hid and honestly forgot. I know I started to hide in certain ways to make others comfortable. And Xposed Living is about recognizing it's not your job to make another person feel comfortable. You show up as you, and you step into the life that you came to live boldly, bravely, agelessly. Because reinvention doesn't require a breakdown. It requires a decision. So let's begin with some truths. I've been told my whole life to turn it down. Don't talk so much. Don't sing so loud. Don't always try to be the star. But the truth, I wasn't trying to be the star. I just already was one. I had energy, zest, passion, curiosity. I was on all the sports teams. I competed in music. I was a girl who lit up a room when she walked in until I learned that shining too bright made others uncomfortable. And so I started to listen to what people were saying. I started to talk quieter, to talk less. I know that's hard to believe, but I did. And people are like, you have a filter? I'm like, yes, I actually have a filter. You should see what I want to say sometimes. But I also started to lose my way. I learned how to shrink. I started people pleasing. I started thinking that I wasn't enough showing up as who I am. And I learned to succeed within the rules, quote, quote, instead of asking why those rules were even there. Does this sound familiar to anybody? For a while, I did what many Gen Xers did. I got the degree. I landed the corporate job. I earned over 6 figures. I got married. I had children. I lived the dream. But let's be real. There were days I'd sit in boardrooms, commanding teams, yet felt completely out of control in my own life and in my own marriage. There were nights I'd cry quietly in bed, questioning whether I was truly happy or really just good at surviving. No one talks about that part. Because when you're successful on paper, when you're raising two daughters alone after a divorce, which was my situation, and when you're the one that people lean on, you don't feel like you have permission to fall apart. In fact, it wasn't even permission. I felt sometimes like I was the base of a stack of cards. And if I went down, then we all went down. And it was my duty, it was my obligation to make sure that everybody would be okay, even at the sacrifice of myself. I was pouring from an empty cup. But what I've learned and what I'm here to share and what my guests will share over the coming weeks, months, years, I'm so excited. This movement is not going away. We're here to stay, Gen Xers. But what we'll come to learn is that you don't need to have a breakdown to have a breakthrough. And yet so many of us wait until that divorce, until that diagnosis. What? But what I've learned and what I'm here to share, and I know that many of my guests will over the coming weeks, months, and years, is that you don't need to have a breakdown to have a breakthrough. And yet so many of us wait. We wait till the divorce. We wait till we've actually had that anxiety attack. We wait till we lost the job. We wait till like our cup is so empty that we just don't know what more to do. But we don't have to wait. We never waited in life to create the success that we've had. Why do we start now? Gen X, we were made for the hard. Xposed Living, Be Ageless was born because we, especially Gen Xers, us born in the 70s and raised in the 80s and partied in the 90s, have been operating on outdated belief systems. I know this because I've lived this. Beliefs like success means sacrifice, that money doesn't grow on trees, that in order to get more, we have to sacrifice everything, that if you want more, you're selfish. How about don't dream too big, or don't be too loud, too emotional, too much. Xposed Living community, the movement, the podcast, to be ageless was born because we need to start challenging these beliefs. We need to start increasing our awareness of why we do what we do and why we think what we think. And are we thinking outdated beliefs that are actually holding us back from experiencing more love, from experiencing more money, from experiencing more abundance, better relationships, an improvement in your health, an improvement with your business, in your marriage, with your kids. This podcast is here to challenge those beliefs and replace them with something more powerful. That your age is your edge, not your expiration date. That you can reinvent, you can reimagine, and you can rebuild at any time. That we can be both deeply successful and wildly fulfilled. It is not about living an either or life, but an and life. You can have this and that, and you're not selfish for wanting more. If you have a dream on your heart, it was placed there for a reason. Yet as Gen X's, I believe we were so prone to live from our senses, from what we can hear, taste, smell, see, that we started to limit ourselves by our results. But our results are just a leg of yesterday's thinking. In my experience, and for me, it was the number one thing that kept me stuck, was thinking I can't be more of what I've already achieved. And yet when I thought back to it, when I was in my teenage years, I never worried about the how. I just knew I would get to a place that I was earning six figures, that I was married, that I was able to complete school. And guess what? I did it all because I believed it and I took action. What changed for me was believing bigger than what I knew how to do. And if we don't have a goal that's bigger than what we know and what we have, then there's no growth in it. So back to the story of when I was asked what it is that I want, I started to reflect after it was more than just about my girls. And so I think like, I don't know, what is it? That I just want to retire? That I want to take the occasional trip? Well, no wonder I felt stuck. It's not that those aren't worthy goals, but I already knew how to do that. All I had to do was continue to work, continue to save for RSPs and put money in my pension. Yet there's no fulfillment there. Then I really started to go, wait a second. You know what I've always wanted to do? Speak on stages. You know what I've always wanted to do? Make a bigger impact in corporate. I loved my job. I didn't leave people leadership and change management because I was stressed out or that I didn't like what I was doing. I loved what I was doing, but I knew I could impact on a deeper, grander scale. But I didn't come from a family of entrepreneurs. So to have a secure job that paid a pension and earned what I was earning, that was great. I should just be happy with what I got, right? That was a belief I was operating under for a long time. And yet slowly I would find myself spending more time out shopping and going out for glasses of wine and, these outside things, gossiping more. Because it was these instant gratifying hits I needed, these dopamine releases that were like quick and easy to get the fulfillment that I really used to get from reaching and expanding and achieving goals that were beyond what I knew how to do. But I never thought of that. I just thought of it as, all right, you're just getting older. That's what people do. Again, follow the crowd. All of the things that you and I both were taught in our high school. Step out from the crowd. Lead with purpose and passion. And then somewhere along the lines, once we got to this comfort level, we forgot about our own rules. And instead, we started to play it safe. So this show is for my Gen Xers, my high-achieving Gen Xers, who knows there's more. Maybe you don't know how to get it, but you know that the light in you used to shine brighter, that the spark was stronger. There's still spark, though, and we can relight it, because this is for you if you want more energy, more freedom, more fun, more purpose, more wealth, more you. So what you can expect with Xposed Living Be Ageless is that you're going to hear solo episodes from me, where I don't just teach, I tell my truth. You'll hear real stories. I remember when I used to think that vulnerability was a weakness. I've come to learn and embrace that vulnerability as a strength. There is no courage without being vulnerable. That it's okay to ask for help. These things in the past stopped me from becoming more. I just wanted to make sure everybody around me thought that I was good. And I would put on these different masks to show up and to be the person that I thought they wanted me to be, to fit in, because we all want to feel that sense of belonging and love. I believe it's one of our core fundamental reasons for life. But if we're trying to fit in and belong to a group that doesn't understand us and accept us as the exposed self, we got to find a new place and be brave enough to do it on our own. It's what my journeys over these last 5 years, leaving corporate and starting entrepreneurship, has taught me, and it has not been easy. I always say, if it was easy, everybody would do it. If it was easy, it would still be in my comfort zone. But I cannot stay in my comfort zone and get different results. And I think this is where there's such this misunderstanding, is that we want different results, but we want to continue to show up as we always have. It doesn't work. And through the stories that not only I share, but my guests, you'll see there was a reinvention that had to happen. It wasn't letting go of the things that you already love about yourself. And maybe there's some beliefs that have really helped you to bring you to where you're at. But when you start to think about what it is that you love and what you want to move forward, they don't help move the needle. And just because you've had a belief in the past doesn't mean that it's true. We can let it go. We can surrender to the present moment. We can open ourselves up and know that we were made for the hard, that there is no such thing as failing unless we quit, unless we stop. To embrace the hard, to embrace the suck, because yes, when you do it the first time, you're not going to be good, but that doesn't mean that it's not for you. And I share that in speaking to you as much as I share that in speaking to me. We've fallen in love with the comfort, with the instant gratification. And yet when you're looking for more Gen Xers, we know we have to fall in love with that delayed gratification, that the goal is worth it. It's not just attaining the goal, but it's who we become in the journey. You will hear a lot of stories about that in Xposed Living. And you'll meet guests who aren't just coaches or influencers. They're humans who faced real shit and chose growth. I'll always ask, what's a belief you had to unlearn to become who you are today? And what does it mean to live agelessly? We won't shy away from the taboo. We'll expose it. We are talking dating after divorce, how to even get through a divorce, how to have a successful relationship with the kids that can sometimes be assholes. We love them, but damn, it's not always easy being a parent. And yet there's so much joy in that too. We'll talk about health, both emotionally and physically, and the changes that we go through in our bodies as we age. So yes, there will be some talk on women health, men health, from menopause to the way we age. Is there even such a thing as aging gracefully? To dye the hair, to not dye the hair, to wear makeup, to not wear makeup, to get Botox and fillers, to not get Botox and fillers. It is vitality and vanity. We are not shying away from talking about sex, money, business. It always makes me laugh that the things that we want the most, sometimes we carry the most shame and guilt around. And that is why Xposed Living is a community of safety, of not judging, of expressing, to expose and to expand. Because this movement isn't about playing small or staying safe. Truth, I've exposed, is the only way to live free is to stop hiding. That we can't build financial freedom until we have emotional freedom. Exposed living is about being ageless in your thinking, your living, and your leading. Because midlife isn't a crisis, it's a launch pad. Because age isn't just a number, it's a mindset. And you, my friend, you were made for more. So why now? And why exposed? I didn't start this because I have all the answers. Lord knows that's not the truth. I started because I've lived the questions. I started because I have a dream on my heart. And I tell you what, this start has been a long time coming. I think I've actually tried to attempt launching a podcast for the last 2.5, 3 years. It's gone through different names. There was always something not quite right. One point in time, I was going to call it orgasmic living. I thought that the key to life, I still believe this though, is that bliss point. You know, goals almost like setting or having an orgasm, I would say. People are like, what? You're going to compare goals to an orgasm? Yes, and I'm going to talk about it on this podcast right now. Why? Because we don't just experience an orgasm by thinking of it and wanting it. We've got to believe it. We've got to feel it. We've got to see ourselves already experiencing the emotion of it. And when we can lock into that, our body follows. It's the same as having a goal that's bigger than what you know how to do. We don't act the way that the goal demands once we get it, or we would never get it. We've got to be her, be him, in order to create the new. It's be, do, have. And yet for a lot of us as Gen Xers, we were taught it's do, be, have. No. Let's recut that. Go back to the part of do, be, have. It's do, be, have. And yet for so many of us Gen Xers, we think, or a subconscious belief is that I will be it once I have it. But the reality is we can attract who we aren't. We don't attract what we want. We attract who we are. So if we're not living from that end state and getting emotionally involved and believing that we can, then we won't. Other reasons of why now and why exposed. I've been the overachiever, the people pleaser. I often introduce myself. Hi, Stacey Vanthuyne, people pleaser, a recovering people pleaser. Nice to meet you. I've been the performer. I've been the woman crushing it at work and crumbling in silence at home. I've cheated on my husband. I had to go through the shame and guilt of lying and cheating. And when I look back into it, although I would change having the confidence to actually stand my ground and speak my truth, I wouldn't change the fact that having that brought me to where I am today. I think there's a lot of us out there that are in relationships that don't fill our cup and we stay, or we go outside of ourselves to find that happiness when the true happiness has to come from within. I remember thinking that if somebody would have asked me at that time that I lacked self-love or confidence in myself, I would have told them they're full of shit, truthfully. And like, look it, I'm crushing it in business. I'm raising my young daughters on my own. I'm running the house by myself. I'm getting fit. I'm working out. Like, what do you mean confidence? What do you mean self-love? But the truth of the matter is we will never outperform our own self-identity. And when I reflect back into having the affair, it was that I didn't love the life that I was living, but I wanted more, but I didn't realize I had to become more to get more. And so I looked for validation outside of myself.
And when I got it, I was like, oh, yeah, I am worthy of love. Yeah, I am worthy of relationships that fill my cup. But why did I have to get to a point to have an affair in order to do that? Well, truthfully, I just wasn't aware. I didn't know. But I do know now. And I'm here to share with you the first person that needs to change in order for a relationship to improve is you. We are the only problem that we'll ever have and the only solution. But a lot of us as Gen X were raised with that Jerry Maguire scene that says, you complete me. I remember I used to yearn to hear someone say those words to me. And yet the truth of the matter is I had to complete me. And so I've overcome the shame and the guilt with having the affair. And truthfully, my ex-husband and I are great friends. We realize we're better apart than together. But we did have to go through a really rough patch to get there. And over these weeks, I will share that story with you. I'm sure it relates to a lot of people. So that was my exposed truth in that. And so here I am, divorced at 40, 2 daughters, still trying to be everything for everyone. I started checking the boxes and slowly I was still losing myself. I didn't really understand what had happened until I started to do the internal deep work, which I would say didn't really happen till I was about 43 and onwards. But my journey post-divorce, it has changed so much in what I believe in myself, what I know I'm worthy of. And an affirmation I'd love for you to speak into yourself that I speak is I am worthy of great things and capable of incredible things. And you may feel like you're lying to yourself, but the reality is it's just something you don't believe yet. It's not a lie. It's the truth. You are worthy of great things and capable of incredible things. But that famous quote of whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right, rings true. Thoughts do become things. And if we consistently think why we can't more than why we can, then that will continue to show up in my life. And that's what's happening to me. So I'm very passionate about exposed living because I had to go through one layer after another layer after another. I'm still unlayering. There is no end to our journey. When the journey is over, we've died. We are spiritual beings. The essence of us is for further expansion and growth. And this movement was born out of a moment where I looked around and realized we can have a greater impact. And I'm not meant to live a life that is defined by external standards. I don't want to survive anymore. I want to thrive. I can do it on my own, sure. I've proven that. I've got the check marks. But there's more. And I know I'm not alone. So many of us hit midlife and wonder, is this it? But here's what I believe. Reinvention is always available. Why wait? Too many of us wait for those types of emotional impact, whether it's a death, a divorce, a diagnosis, before we do the uncomfortable. We've become addicted to the comfort. That is nice, yes, but it's limiting us. Comfort kills more dreams than failure ever would. Because it's not failing unless we don't do it, unless we quit. But if we just take that step day after day after day, it creates momentum. It creates belief. And it creates a new way of living. Exposed doesn't mean being reckless. It means being real. It's about having the courage to say, I want more. Not out of lack, but out of remembrance. Remembering who you were before you got buried under responsibilities, the labels, the titles, the expectations. This isn't a mindset podcast. It's a life podcast. It's a living community, a movement. As I mentioned to begin with, a midlife revolution we didn't even realize we need, but is here. We'll talk about everything, from sex to success, from parenting teens to dating, post-divorce, health, faith, fear, money, menopause, aging parents, broken friendships, all things. And it's not about being perfect. It's about being fully present, fully you. For here's one of my true core beliefs. To have it all, you've got to know what you even want. And to know that, you've got to get exposed, uncovered, unmasked, and remember. So here's your first call to action. Look at the rules you've been following and ask yourself, who taught me that? And decide, am I ready to rewrite them? Because if you are, you're in the right place. Know that when you change how you see yourself, you change how you live. And the world needs you. The world needs you exposed, not edited. This is Xposed Living. Be ageless. This is my story. I hope you've enjoyed it. If it struck something within you, don't sit there. Take action. Reach out to me. Join our Xposed Living community on Facebook. Send a message. Tag me. Share the podcast. And let's get exposed. It's time we break the rules, build the freedom. Let's go. And if you like, let me just reiterate this, what you've heard from me today, just wait till you hear from my guests. For this show isn't for the 95% trying to look like they have it all together. It's for the 5% who are ready to live it. Thank you. And it's time. Let's get exposed.
That's it for today's episode of Xposed Living, Be Ageless. But this is just the beginning. If this episode made you feel something, share it. Tag me. Send it to a friend. Let's start the conversation we can be having all along. No shame, no guilt. Unfiltered, raw, real, exposed. And if you're ready to go deeper, join us inside the Xposed Living Facebook community, where we take this work off the podcast and into real life. Know this, your change starts when your excuses die. Because this life, this one wild, ageless, unforgettable life is waiting on you. This is your time. This is your truth. This is Xposed Living.